all of them 20 to 1. That would be a mammoth treble. And trust me, I'll be clipping this and put it on Twitter if all 3 of those come in at the festival. It'd be after time central. Hello and welcome along to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV. I'm Joshua Stacey and I'm joined by Andrew Blair White as we have a look to Trials Day at Cheltenham. We've also got good racing at Doncaster and plenty of action to review. But before we go on to that, we've got a bit of a giveaway for you. Now, I was scouring the market in the horse racing world for a racing cap. I wanted a new one and I didn't really find any I liked. I think you had the same problem?
Yeah, very much so. I love wearing caps myself, and especially when you're going racing or you're walking around and stuff like that. Look, we ended up getting to the stage where we felt like we might as well try and maybe make one and see how it ended up turning out, and we've done so. We've ended up getting 3 just for personal use at the moment, but that does leave us with 1 to give away, as I think you have for us, Josh.
We do. It's got LTR for Let's Talk Racing and a golden horse on there. You can win this hat. There are literally 3. One that Andrew's wearing, one that I'm wearing, and then this one here, still with the tags on. All you've got to do is enter down in the comments LTR, all in capitals, so Let's Talk Racing, LTR, cap. And then once you do that, you'll be entered in the giveaway. I'll pick a winner on the podcast next week, on the YouTube channel next week. And it's simply LTR cap, very limited edition. Only 3 of them on the planet. Don't want to miss out. So there we go. The giveaway is for the cap. Let's reflect on our best bets from last weekend. And God, you're now 6 out of 7 in the last 2 weeks. You're flying. Fantastic ass Joy Mashan and Nella Drama.
Yeah, no, it was very good. Look, a couple of good winners in there with Manila Drama especially was really impressive at Haydock, and always good to get a Paul Nolan winner in the best bets. That Joy Mashan's a lovely horse and a good nudge for Facile Vega followers as well. So fantastic to get another 3 from 3, and fingers crossed we can keep that up. As for yourself, Josh, absolute heartbreak. I've been there before this year with the close call finishes, but you were at Ascot. How did it feel?
Cova Lobo. So Stella Magic was an after weekend. He just never got going, didn't jump well enough. Il Rodotto finished second, but Cova Lobo. Oh, I was there. I thought John Joe had set the perfect fractions and he was coming round the bend, still on the bridle. And I thought, here we go. I think I put him up at 12 to 1. I thought, this is the one. Surely Cova Lobo gets the job done. Jumps to the last, still 2 in front, but David Maxwell and Cat Tiger were coming there very well. And but I still had a small feeling John Joe might get the upper hand here. Doesn't really jump the last very well. Was passed actually by Cat Tiger and then came back. And I thought, oh, he's got there on the line. Unfortunately, he was a whisker away. The worst thing about it is then half an hour later, Harry Fry, Kevin Brogan, Phoenix Way, a horse I've been banging on about for weeks, comes there and wins on the snaff. And it was just head in hands moment. I was like, how have I missed that? But he ran brilliantly, and look, he might even have a squeak. He still might be unexposed in an Ultima at the festival. He's 16 to 1 for the race now. He's a horse I'm looking at. Lucky enough, I was actually, thanks to SBK, the sponsors of the Clarence House Chase, I actually picked the winner of the best turned out for the Clarence House Chase. I gave it to First Flow up in Ascot. I put basically half the box on Cova Lobo. I said, this horse, my nap of the day. Everyone was absolutely gutted that he finished second by a whisker. We are going to talk about the great racing we've had over the last week, and we're going to start with Walking on Air. Now, we probably should have reviewed him in our last video, but because we had to record that on the Tuesday night and he ran on the Wednesday, we were unable to. He was mightily impressive, and he won at Newbury I think by 13 lengths. He jumped well, he travelled well, and instantly afterwards Nicky Henderson said that 2.5 miles will be his game. Ballymore instantly was mentioned. It looks like the Sydney Banks over 2 miles and 3 furlongs at Huntington will be next. The race that Shishkin won before winning the Supreme. He does look special. He's 10 to 1 now for the Ballymore. Slightly skinny on that price, considering we've only seen him once?
I think so. Maybe a little bit of an overreaction. It was a very good performance, that being said, as you alluded to. And the fact that he jumped so slickly as well and put a decent enough field to bed in such impressive fashion certainly put away those 66 to 1 Ballymore quotes that were going around before the race. He's probably, realistically, should be around a 16 to 1 shot now, or a 14 to 1 shot maybe. And if he was to go and win the Sydney Banks very impressively, that he'd maybe go on to be near enough favourite, I suspect, certainly probably in the top 2 or 3 in the market for the Ballymore. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, considering that race does look open. But the fact that at the moment that he's only 1 point bigger than a Grade 1 winner in Ginto looks a little bit farcical. But that being said, he does look a very exciting horse.
Between now and the Ballymore, it's very hard to find a race for these good horses, and Nicky Henderson was saying that in his after-race comments. And he's now moved Balco Coastal, who was meant to run in the Sydney Banks, to this weekend in the Classic Novice Hurdle at Cheltenham to accommodate Walking on Air, to allow him to have that run up in class, up in trip. That might say a lot for Nicky Henderson to do that, so that is interesting. But Shishkin and Energumene was the feature of the weekend at Ascot, and it was just amazing. It was breathtaking to watch. It had everything. Tight finish. It's not a walk in the park for Shishkin at Cheltenham by any means. Energumene could turn that around in some shape or form, although it's hard to imagine how he does it. But just watching the race, what were your emotions? What did you think? Did you think Shishkin was beat? Because turning for home, I definitely did.
Yeah, it was a hard one. Throughout the race, you always thought, because you know the way Shishkin finishes races off, he's close enough, if good enough, he's close enough. But that being said, I was saying it on the audio podcast that's gone out yesterday, that, you know, turning in, you had that glimpse of kind of that Altior surname race where you're suddenly just going, I just don't think this horse is going to get by him, no matter what he does. And the fact that he kind of still was around 1.5 lengths down at the last, was so clever and quick at it, and then found so much under pressure, just goes to show the hallmark of the horse, and the hallmark of the 2 horses in general. 2 special horses that we're dealing with here, and it was a fantastic race to live up to the billing, and fingers crossed they can both stay in one piece and we can get a second slice of the cake at Cheltenham, because I've nothing to suggest really why Energumene would change the form, but I've also nothing to suggest how Shishkin beats him any further than he did at Ascot. So I would hopefully have a fingers crossed that we will be strapping ourselves in, coming down to 2 out, and it'll be the best horse that wins from there on home.
It's the question that everyone wants answered. How do Team Mullins go about beating Shishkin? Did they change tactics?
I don't think they can really. Energumene's a point and shoot merchant. He's a very good jumper, and I suppose around somewhere like Cheltenham you're trying to maybe expose Shishkin's jumping. Look, I've seen plenty of different theories. As you say, it's the question on everyone's lips at the moment. And I know it's going to sound very silly, but I think they should just do very similarly to what they did at Ascot. You know, control the race, try and get Energumene in a lovely jumping rhythm, and make sure he's got enough, you know, to get up that hill, because there's no point him burning himself off. I've seen people saying he needs to go harder, but he just won't get home at Cheltenham then, and then sets it up for Shishkin, or potentially sets it up for something even, even inferior to Energumene himself. So it's all up in the air, but I would say they'll end up doing something quite similar. The only fly in the ointment is potentially Shishkin Poursois. Where does he line up, if he does line up in all of that, because he likes to go forward. But other than that, I suspect it won't be that dissimilar.
Stiff finish, quicker ground. I can only see Shishkin winning by further, although I do hope it's an incredible bust-up and round 2 is just as epic as round 1. I don't see the angle with Nube Negra and Put the Kettle On if she was to run there. I just think these 2 horses are in a different league, and hopefully you would like to see Shishkin Poursois bounce back to his old self at the Dublin Racing Festival and maybe put his hat in there. Jonbon at Haydock wasn't as visually impressive as Constitution Hill was when beating Mai Tai. Mai Tai finished 3rd at the weekend. Constitution Hill was in receipt of £6 from Mai Tai, and Jonbon had to give Mai Tai £5. So there's an £11 swing, which probably equates to, let's say, roughly 10 lengths. Workmanlike, he didn't like the ground. It took time to get going, and I think Aidan Coleman said that he was absolutely flat out. Has Jonbon gone down the pecking order at all for you?
No, not particularly. Look, I think there's been a bit of overreaction to his run at Haydock. I thought it kind of made a man of him, really. The fact that he had to undergo things not going his way for the first time. You know, it was a messy enough little race. He got into trouble at the top of the straight. He had to quicken and then go again. It's quite all these hard things to do, and he did them in desperate ground as well. Look, you can shape form, you can shape times and distances to suit your own horse. I see people out there that will tell you everything you want to hear about Constitution Hill, but they're so far in his camp, which is fair enough to people that want to back him, but they're so far in his camp that it's not a decent argument, really, because they're waving their stopwatches out, and I've always been of the indication that you can make times and you can make certain things suit what you want to see and what you want to make of them. I still think Jonbon's got just as good a chance as he did going into Saturday, and in fact the fact that he got through a hard race and that he showed that he can be man enough to do it when things don't go his way was actually quite encouraging, and if anything he's gone a little bit up in my estimations.
As someone before the race that said Jonbon was my main horse for the Supreme at this stage, it's not changed, but I think he's come closer to the other rivals. He jumps very well still, just looked a little bit awkward, and he did sweat quite badly. Got the job done now 3 times on a racetrack. It hasn't seemed to faze him. I would worry about the big occasion. Tommy's Oscar won the Champion Hurdle Trial. Any chance of this horse placing in a Champion Hurdle?
I suppose there's a chance, yeah. They're entitled to go and run in the race. He's been a revelation for Connections, winning his last couple, and he won so easily on the weekend, and it's hard to do at Haydock to win on the bridle, but it was a tin pot race. It wasn't any type of grade 2 race really, and to be honest, he probably have more chance if they rode him cold in the Aintree Hurdle. That still might be the long term plan, but they can run in the Champion Hurdle. He might come in the first 3 or 4, but he shouldn't be challenging the real market leaders.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. A very good horse for Connections. Royale Pagaille won the Peter Marsh Chase for the 2nd year in a row. This time he had to beat better horses and give them a lot of weight. I was very impressed actually, and I thought Charlie Deutsch gave him an absolute peach. Looking at the Gold Cup, it's inevitably where he's going to go next. Rich Ritchie and his interesting mullet were at Haydock, and he mentioned, he mentioned that the Gold Cup was probably next up, and he's got to take his chance. He ran in the Gold Cup last year as a novice, albeit an older novice, but he's a year older, a year more experience over fences. Would he have a chance at a Gold Cup? Let's say good ground Gold Cup, soft ground Gold Cup, heavy Gold Cup. How do you rate his chances?
Good ground, he's no chance. Soft ground, I'd say he'd finish mid-div, and heavy ground, he might have a chance of sneaking into the places. I can't see him winning a Gold Cup really. I just don't think he's good enough, and I don't think his jumping around Cheltenham would kind of stand up to the test really. He's another one of these Venetia Williams French recruits, and I've said it plenty of times, and they look super when they jump well, but they do skim the top, and sometimes at Cheltenham they can be found out doing that. Look, he's a lovely horse. I thought, as you say, it was a monumental effort on Saturday, and great to see a weight carrying performance. We don't see that many of them anymore, of those really big weights, but he still has it to find in a Gold Cup, and he'd want the rain gods to be really on his side and probably be raining for the next 6 weeks on the trot at Cheltenham to have a real chance of going very close.
The 2 mile 5 furlong feature chase at Cheltenham was dominated last year by Allaho. We saw him on Sunday. He looks almost even better going into the race this year than he did last year. He was very, very good.
Oh, he was superb, yeah, and he was good in the John Durkin, and people kind of grabbed that effort despite because he made a couple of fluffy mistakes, but it was a gutsy effort. But the fact that he's kind of been able to freshen him up and get what was really a very routine victory into him, and another kind of demolition job into him would be really appetising if you were a supporter of him and a backer of him. The only thing, as I said yesterday on the audio podcast, Josh, we've got to slam these people down that are still backing Fakir Duderies each way for the Ryanair, because you were susceptible to it back in your day as well, and thank goodness, like the mighty Don, you've swerved the well path, you've gone down the right way, because he's just never going to beat Allaho. Like, it's 4-0 now, I think, between the two horses, and you sometimes just got to pull stumps. With an each way bet, you've got to somewhat believe they're going to win, and there's no chance of them winning.
Fakir Duderies in a very difficult situation where he's not going to be beating Allaho anytime soon, and there's not many 2.5 mile grade 1s that Allaho's not going to feature in. Maybe they could bring Fakir Duderies over for the Ascot Chase, the grade 1. I know he's entered in the race. That might be of interest, and try and avoid Allaho that way. Let's then preview this weekend's racing, and there's racing back at Cheltenham. It doesn't get much better than this. Trials Day as well. Festival. Cheltenham Festival. Anything with that in is fantastic. Trials Day isn't as good as just the Cheltenham Festival, but it gets me awfully excited. The Triumph Hurdle Trial is one of the main races at the start of the card, and interestingly, Gordon Elliott has entered Pied Piper, who beat Vauban on his hurdling debut. Now he's 7-4 for the race, and Davy Russell is jocked up to ride. I suspect if he is confirmed for the race, he's going to be odds on. He was very good. He's got a very good reputation as well. I'd say he's going to take the world of beating if he runs here.
I'd say so too. I'm not sure whether he will run. I know he's been jocked up. I still would be waiting certainly to see those declarations. But at the time this video is being watched by plenty of you, you'll know the declarations by then. But he's a fascinating runner. He's a fascinating horse going forward for the Triumph Hurdle. I think he'd take the world of beating. If he doesn't run, I would say the Nick Williams horse In Turn to Civil probably takes a fair bit of beating. Won at the Cheltenham meeting there only a couple of weeks ago. Looks a nice enough type of horse, and the fact that one of probably his main rivals, Greystone, I think is going to run at Wetherby tomorrow instead, or today as you're watching it, would indicate that he mightn't have maybe the strongest race on his hands there, especially if Pied Piper wasn't to turn up.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to take on the Paul Nicholls horse as well. The 2.5 mile handicap chase, the feature race, includes horses like Cool Cody. They've been there before, they'll be there again. Just absolute legends of the game. I've got one in here. I think I've unearthed one that I really, really like. And he's entered in the 120 Novices Handicap Chase, and he's also entered in this race at 155. But I hope he runs here because he'll be carrying a featherweight. And it's Torn and Frayed for Nigel Twiston Davies. He's been running in small field events at Cheltenham, Ascot and Haydock this season, and he's finished not a million miles behind some really good horses in Anion Invictus, Favois and My Drogo, who was only 7 lengths behind My Drogo at Cheltenham. The last day at Haydock, he didn't run very well. He was pulled up, but it was heavy, and it was proper heavy, Haydock heavy. He didn't jump fluently, and it's a tricky track. I'm willing to forgive him for that. But he's got such a low weight. He's off 131, I believe. I think he's better than that. I think Sam Twiston Davies can be very straightforward, bounce out and try and make all. If he's better than 131, he's going to be very difficult to pass. But there's horses that have been there, done it. Will you be siding with the horse like Cool Cody in this?
He always has his chance. You can't discredit him, and he always probably get a bigger price on him than you probably should do, given how consistent he is. Look, I'm siding for one of my been there and not so done it, but I'm still hoping he might do it at some stage. It's Galahad Quest. Look, it's going to come to the end of the road some stage very soon. It's going to have to be a Mighty Dawn situation where I've got to cut ties, but I'm going to give him one more go off 132 here. Look, he's shaped really well in 2 course and distance handicaps now this year. His jumping just lets him down sometimes when the taps quicken, but he's a good horse. He should be winning off this type of mark at some stage. I'm going to give him one more pop. He's around 6-7 to 1. One
more pop. When he finishes a close second, an eye-catching third, you'll be like, oh, he'll win the next time. It's guaranteed. At the 3 mile 1 furlong, Cotswold Chase comes up next, and it is interesting. We've got Chantry House, who was very disappointing in the King George, and then Ahoy Signor, who also ran the same day at Kempton and was second to Brave Man's Game. Ahoy Signor 7-2, Chantry House evens. Is there a bet in here? Both will be looking to bounce back.
Yeah, I don't think there really is, Josh, to be honest. It's probably a watch and brief for me. Look, I think Chantry House is the best horse in the race. I kind of want him to win. I want him to maybe re-unearth himself as a bit of a live wire for the Gold Cup. Obviously, it was a lifeless run at Kempton. You want to see a bit better than that. I think the Gold Cup at the moment's looking a little bit fragile. It could do with a bit of life, and him winning could inject that into him. Oh, he's saying, look, I was keen on him at Kempton. Look, he's got to go and prove it, though, now, and I'm not sure. I'm kind of just not sure about this preparation that they're giving him. They're kind of launching him into big races here, against good horses, and surely you just maybe find a listed or a grade 3 novice chase somewhere along the lines. Like, I can't imagine the likes of Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott just suddenly chucking their horse into the Irish Gold Cup as a novice. Like, it's like Galopin Des Champs running in the Irish Gold Cup, and I just don't see it happening. So probably not a betting race. Interesting race nonetheless, though, but probably hopeful that Chantry House can win, and maybe win quite well.
If they're going to step into open company with a Ahoy Signor, I'd have definitely gone to the Denman Chase, which is over the same course and distance that he won at. I actually think he could be a bit of a better 7-2 though. Bold front running, 3 miles, left-handed, quick ground. Chantry House now needs to run well, because that will put the nail in the coffin for Champ, who runs in the Cleeve hurdle. He's got to beat Paisley Park. He's also got to beat McFabulous. He's 1-2 to do so. Do you think he will?
Yeah, I think he will do. I can't see any reason why he wouldn't. He's a very good horse. Over hurdles, his record's been near on immaculate over hurdles. Obviously he got beaten by City Island back at that Ballymore. Look at where City Island ended up, and you can't really believe how he got beaten by him. But other than that, he's been fairly faultless. He was fantastic in the long walk. You could have maybe taken him on with Time Hill if Time Hill rocked up, but none of these horses are the ability of Time Hill. And as a result, he's 1-2. I'm not telling people things that they don't know already, but I suspect he has as good a chance as anything.
And there's this kind of general stigma around him that he's inconsistent or he's in and out. The horse has had 16 runs. He's finished in the top 2 14 times. 10 wins, 4 seconds. So we're looking at the 2 times he didn't finish in the top 2. One time he fell when 2 out in the Dipper. He was going to win that day. So his only poor run on a race course was in the Gold Cup last year when he never went a yard, and he had a prep race over 2 miles about a month before. So you're looking at the Stayers Hurdle market. Classical Dream, Flooring Porter, Time Hill. Classical Dream, after his novice hurdle campaign, struggled massively in open company. Something was clearly amiss with him. 487-day break, and he was a non-runner twice in that time due to lameness. He ran at Punchestown over 3 miles and bolted up, and we looked, God, that's a serious horse. He then backed that up, in fairness, at Leopardstown when beating Flooring Porter. Even then, he jolted at the start. Maybe Flooring Porter could have got closer if Flooring Porter had it his way. So he doesn't seem massively straightforward. You then look at Flooring Porter, and it's been an incredible rise for him as well. 13 months ago, he won a handicap hurdle off 136 at 22-1. He went on to win the Stayers Hurdle. He won a Grade 1 before that, but then after that he was pulled up at Punchestown. You could probably give excuses that it was the end of a campaign, he had a hard time, it was an incredible rise. He fell on his return. He was in second to Classical Dream. Again, not a very attractive profile at this stage. You then look at Time Hill, who in fairness, he probably is quite solid, but he was solid until picking up an injury before Cheltenham last year that ruled him out of the race. He won at Aintree, he beat Roxana in a tight finish. He had a horrific run in France on return, and he was much better in the long walk, but he still finished second to a half-fit Champ. So I'm looking at it, and those that are crabbing Champ, I'm going to say that Champ's actually the most solid of the 4. Yes, he is getting on, but he's had very few miles on the clock. And I look at it, and I actually looked at all the other horses in the betting that are 10-year-olds. Mellon, 29 runs. Paisley Park, 20 runs. Cider Burley, 21 runs. Darva Star, 26 runs. Champ, just the 16. He's extremely lightly raced. I think he's very solid. 3 miles, hurdle race, Cheltenham. He'll be staying. You'd think Flooring Porter's going to go very hard in the Stayers Hurdle, make it a real stamina test. That's only going to suit Champ. Time Hill, is he the most thorough stayer in the world? Probably not. Classical Dream, I would maybe have doubts with him staying 3 miles around Cheltenham as well. So this kind of general thing that the Champ is this in and out horse, you can't predict when he's going to turn up. He very rarely doesn't turn up, but I think he's a seriously good horse. And I suspect at the weekend, the Cleeve Hurdle, beating Paisley Park won't be a massive accomplishment, as he looks a shadow of himself, and I just think he'll win. I think he's got an ideal preparation. It won't be a hard time. The final race we're going to preview at Cheltenham is the 2.5 mile Ballymore Novices Hurdle. It's almost a trial for the main race in March. Balco Coastal in there, Hillcrest, Dubrovnik Harry, Pecking Rose and Greenbook. The plan, as I said earlier, for Balco is to run in the Sydney Banks. They've switched him to accommodate walking on air. I Am Maximus from the same stable finished second to Hillcrest last time out, and the thing that I've got a slight concern about with Balco Coastal is if you told Nicky Henderson at the start of the season, I think he'd have had I Am Maximus a million miles ahead of Balco Coastal at that stage, and they may have been disappointed with what I Am Maximus has done on a race course. I know I certainly am. Do you think that Balco Coastal has enough gears? Will he stay well enough to beat Hillcrest if he runs here and not the River Don at Doncaster?
Yeah, I think he's got the gears. I'd be a little bit more concerned about the stamina aspect of things. I think it's a really good race. A fascinating clash, because I think the likes of Dubrovnik Harry and Peking Rose are being maybe a little bit underplayed. I think Peking Rose did it really nicely at Newbury, where he beat Ollie Murphy's horse Hardy to Manil, and obviously Dubrovnik Harry won by half the track at Exeter last time out, and is a very raw horse. That being said, I know there's been a good bit of chat about him, but I can't stop thinking about this Hillcrest. I think he's a serious horse, and I know Henry Daly's had some very good horses in the past, but I'd hazard a guess that if this was maybe trained by somebody a little bit more fashionable, that we'd be talking a lot more about this horse. To be honest, I think if he was being trained by Paul Nicholls, I think people would almost already be backing him for next year's Festival Novices Chase. You know, he's a massive, big, imposing horse. I thought he was super at Cheltenham on New Year's Day when he beat Ian Maximus. He jumps well, finds a fair bit off the bridle. The only thing that's a disappointment about this horse was that I put him up as my nap of Stephen's Day of 127 up in Wetherby. He'd have won by half the blooming track up there. He was an absolute shoe-in off that mark, but I think he takes the world to beating. I know he's got a £5 penalty to overcome, but at 7-2 he's a bet for me. I think he'll run in here rather than the River Don.
Do you have a bet over at Doncaster for the 3 mile SkyBet Chase?
I don't mind one at a price in this. I would give a chance to Demachine for Kerry Lee at 11-1. I think obviously unseeded at the first last time out, that can happen. It was a bit of a soft unseed as well, but previous to that he was 5th in the Ladbrokes Trophy. He was not a bad novice chaser last year off a mark of 140. I think there's scope for improvement off that mark, and you're getting a double figure price.
Yeah, the one that I would give a favourable mention to would be Cap Course. Good performance after 364-day layoff at Newbury, and I think there might be room with his mark as well. I'm going to run through 3 updates of horses that you've asked for in your questions over on Twitter. Do get them down in the tweets for next week's video. Coppolus, I spoke to Ollie Murphy. The County Hurdle is unlikely. I'd say that might be touch and go whether he'll be back for that, but the Scottish Champion Hurdle and also the 2 mile handicap hurdle at Aintree are very much possibilities. So he's back in training, and the Scottish Champion and Aintree are probably going to be the target. And also Ollie Murphy bought a juvenile from Elmery Holden called Swinging London, and he runs in the Adonis hurdle. He'll make his debut for Ollie in the Adonis. He's had 2 hurdle starts in Ireland. He finished 3rd to Luna Power, and he also finished 3rd to Iveric de Soy. Veraverto was in there at 2nd. He was a very close 3rd, and 4th was Champion Green. So he could be a decent juvenile to keep an eye on, maybe one for the Boodles at the festival. Journey with Me, we were also asked which race do you think that he's going to run at the festival. Henry de Ronho came out today and said that the 2 mile 6 grade 1 at the Dublin Racing Festival is an option, and the 2 mile 3 furlong novice hurdle at Nace a couple of weeks later is also an option. With those distances, I would be thinking Ballymore. I don't think they'll step him up to 3 miles. I think they'll keep him at 2 and 5. That's personally my opinion.
Yeah, I'd have to say so. With a horse like him, kind of big raw baby horse, wouldn't say him in a Bartlett by any stretch.
We were asked a question by Robert Bourne, and he asks, can we have a double for Cheltenham Festival with 2 horses and both of them have to be over 10-1? Tell me the goods.
Yeah, hard one from Robert, putting us rightly under the microscope here, and we've got, well, certainly my 2 are both at 25-1. I actually couldn't find that many horses at that little mid-price of 10-12-1 that I thought had that much of a chance. Look, as you get with 25-1 chances, they might be a bit pie in the sky. One of them being a long-term one that we've been backing since October, Bardenstown Lad for the Albert Bartlett. And before people think I'm going mad, this is all falling into place for Bardenstown Lad. Poor old Blazing Cal's got an injury, out of the race. Now the favourite's Journey with Me, not going to run. Ginto's 2nd in the market, I don't think he'll run. Hollow Games has a chance. Jerry Colombe, not for me whatsoever, far too inexperienced. And then you're getting down to Bardenstown Lad in the betting. He's only 5th or 6th in now. If he goes and wins around Musselburgh and stays on strongly, it'll be a single figure price, and we've backed him at 50s. And the other one got an inadvertent form boost on last weekend in one of the best bets with Joya Machan, and it is Xander Clegane for the Champion Bumper. Only thing with him is obviously he is going to need cut in the ground. He should get it. He won't, before people start trying to back him for the Dublin Racing Festival Grade 2 bumper, I would say there's very little chance of him running on that ground. I think there might be a listed bumper at Nace in a week or two's time after that he'd be more likely to go to, and if he goes very well in that, he should be going on to the Champion Bumper. Certainly from reading between the lines, I think they think a fair bit more of him maybe than Joya Machan.
Bet placed. That's it, all done. Thank you very much for that. I've actually got 3 for you. I've not got 2.
Just complicating things.
So unfortunately, Robert, you're going to have a treble, an each way treble, and the 3 horses are going to be Buddy Rich at 20-1 for the Grand Annual, Tullybeg at 20-1 for the Potemps. And then one in the Hunter's Chase, Vorslet at 20 to 1, who won at Stratford last year. Travels very well, stays very well. I think connections think a lot of him, and I think they could go close. And 20 to 1 might be overpriced. Vorslet, Tullybeg and Buddy Rich, all of them 20 to 1. That would be a mammoth treble. And trust me, I'll be clipping this and put it on Twitter if all three of those come in at the festival. It'd be after time central. And Robert, thank you very much for asking. And also we had another question talking about the Betfair hurdle. Do we have an anti-post selection? I'm going to quickly go here. Broomfield Berg, 9 to 1 off 134. That'll do me.
Yep, same for me. Jetoile at 12 to 1 off 132. I think it's a good bet in this. I saw his trainer Ryan Potter in the Racing Post today was giving the horse a big up, telling people that this horse was bringing him places that he's never been before, and hopefully that will all be good. Second to Constitution Hill, and the Talbot looks to have a good chance over favourable weight.
Taking him to places he's never been before. He'll like the second place posts at Newbury Racecourse then, won't he? When Broomfield Berg and Nico de Boinville hard held off 134. He was so good at Kempton the last day.
Just before we get on to obviously what with the rest of the programme, can I please inform people of who won that exact same novice hurdle last year at Kempton, that was also a shoe-in for not only the Betfair hurdle but the county hurdle and the Scottish champion hurdle and this year's Arco. Oh wait, he didn't win any of them. It was third time lucky himself. So we are going back down the infamous Kempton novice hurdle route.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a prime example of how you put someone back in their box. Gordon Elliott entered a few horses over in England in handicaps, mainly to see what handicap mark they would get. Esky Lane got 151. That'd be quite high for a county hurdle, but you'd imagine that would be the target. Perfect Attitude, 132. And then Tory Graph for Jigginstown got a rating of 138. Maybe he could be one for the Kim Muir. I know he was a classy novice hurdler, and that could be quite lenient for him. Willie actually entered Gaelic Warrior in a handicap over here, a 4-year-old that's never been seen for Willie before in the Rich Ritchie Silks. I tell you something, his price in the Boodles has shot down since then, 7 to 1, and he could be doing some damage of 129. He's got a big reputation. Gaelic Warrior, I don't think he'll run at the weekend, but maybe Willie could be rubbing his hands together with that mark of 129. So now we move on then to our best bets for the weekend. I've only got one, so I'm going to quickly get it out the way. You've heard the case already. Torn and Frayed at 16 to 1 in the 2 mile and 4 furlong Handicap Chase at Cheltenham. If he runs in the novice Handicap Chase, then I'm going to back him there as well. So just Torn and Frayed wherever he goes this weekend. I think he'll have a brilliant chance. Take it away. I think you've got 4?
Yep, 4 again, all from Irish track, starting off with Ferryhouse on Saturday, the 105. Robert Tyner's mare in this, Carrickmorna Pine, off a mark of 113. Ran a really nice race on a reappearance from a long absence, with 4th behind fighting 5th. It was a toss-up between herself and Nelly's Money. It's also trained by Robert Tyner. If Carrickmorna Pine isn't entered, back Nelly's Money. One of the two will run, and I think both of them would go very, very close. And Nace on Sunday, the 110. Statler at 9 to 4. I think he's got a great chance. Don't think Fred's going to run. I think his price will collapse. 140, a Novices Handicap Chase, horse called Mercury Lane. I've got a lovely photo with him up on Twitter as well, off a mark of 116. He's ran rubbish in his beginners chases this year, but he was a 130 horse over hurdles. Could be a shoe-in off a mark of 116 at some stage over fences. I'm hoping more positive tactics are employed. And the 340 race, horse I put up last week, ended up being a non-runner. Big King for Barry Connell in the 2 mile handicap hurdle. He'd be my nap of the weekend if he goes and runs. It's a poor enough race. He's a well handicapped horse. Nace 2 miles will all suit. I think he should go very well.
I'm taking that as Bible with the form that you're in at the moment. So all 4 of those will also be on the betting slips this weekend. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. We do hope you've enjoyed it, and do enter the LTR cap giveaway, extremely limited edition. All you've got to do is put LTR cap in capitals down in the comments below. Get your entries in, and we will see you next week.